Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Lucy Superfox Show. My name is Lucy Superfox, and this is my podcast and channel. So, on this week's episode, I am going to dive into whether you are addicted to being in a bad mood, and any mood for that matter, and how we can get addicted to emotional cycles exactly the same way we can get addicted to behaviors and outside substances. So, first of all, let's dive in. I'm going to share with you an actual emotional cycle that I was able to witness and recognize and have been able to move through, because I genuinely think when I can share like real examples from my life, I know how helpful you guys find that. And so I thought I would share this with you from my journal. I wrote a note for myself to find it on page 27. There we go. There we go. So a particular emotional cycle that I was caught in that had a real problematic impact on my life, my business, my relationship, how I felt about myself was this. I would get triggered by something, and this could be anything. This could be somebody else doing something that I wanted to do and doing really well at it. And this has been going on my whole life, by the way. So let's use an example, a business example. Let's say someone else who's doing the same thing as me does really, really well at something. What that triggers in me is a feeling of not being good enough. It triggers a feeling of shame. What that then does is trigger a rebellious streak in me, a kind of got to prove it, whatever it takes, fuck it, I'm going to do it too, or I'm going to do it better than them kind of energy. And that then, even when I achieve the thing and do the thing, because by all, intents and purposes, I am one of those people that will keep going until it's fucking done, right? Like I have that level of kind of grit in me. But what happened every single time was whenever I was creating from that energy, whenever I was creating from that energy of like needing to prove, or what I call that rebellious side of me, I would always be disappointed and nothing would ever feel the way I thought it was going to. And I think for me, that was really clarifying when I was able to see this cycle. But here's what happened. So I would get triggered. I would then not feel good enough. Then I would move into my rebellious energy. That rebellious energy then would get an end result, but from an energy of like hustle and sacrifice and struggle. And then that would lead to a feeling of disappointment or a feeling of like emptiness or lack of connection. That would then lead to the feelings all over again of not feeling good enough, and round and round and round and round we go. And this cycle was keeping me stuck for fucking years, because then what would happen is I would hang out in not feeling good enough for a really long time. Then I would hang out in rebellion for a really, really long time. Then I would hang out in disappointment for a really long time. And then I would go round again. So rather than actually ever being in the joy of the journey and like the real energy of manifesting and creating, or even in, sometimes the more difficult times where we do get those contrasting experiences, I wasn't necessarily sat there seeing it as a contrasting experience. I was just allowing it to trigger in me that I wasn't fucking good enough, feeling shame and then feeling low. And so what this cycle then recreates is that manifests outside of you. So this cycle of energy, which as you can see, most of it is actually pretty low vibe, was creating itself on the outside of my life. So you can have all the desires in the world when it comes to manifestation. You could be like, I want this, I want this, I want this. I believe I can have it. I believe I'm good enough, la, la, la. But if your energy is saying a completely different fucking story, then it's irrelevant what you want. And so what this cycle, seeing this cycle and witnessing this cycle really allowed me to do was recognize where my point of attraction in terms of my vibration, that's the way Abraham Hicks would say it, my point of attraction, my vibration was way fucking off from actually what I wanted, what I was talking into, what I was speaking into, and what I was believing. And when there's that disconnect or that duality or that polarity within us, we're always going to get the lower end of that vibration, right? We're always going to get the worst case scenario, for want of a better term. We're always going to get what we're available for. And what we're available for is always going to be what our baseline is. It's not our, peak expectation, although that sometimes happens. And I'll explain why in a sec. But it's normally actually our baseline experience. It's normally what would be shocking to us if it didn't happen on a low level. It's normally a minimum. It's normally a baseline. And so a baseline for me was that life was fine, business was okay. And again, everyone's definitions of okay, fine, and amazing are different, by the way, which is why I try not to use numbers in these examples, because my version of a baseline and crap could be somebody's entire yearly salary, right? And so we have to be mindful of when we share things that we're sharing them from an honest and integral place, but also being mindful that I want you to take the message and not the numbers, because the numbers are irrelevant, right? So the vibration I was in this cycle was shit all the time, right? And this cycle though became addictive because number one, it allowed me to feel some sense of power. So the disabling feeling of not feeling good enough then created a feeling of like rebellion and got to prove it. And that was quite an empowering emotion. But here's the thing, it was being driven by avoidance of shame. So when we're creating anything from an avoidance of shame, we're not creating anything from pure alignment, from an energy of just like joy and inspiration and excitement. We're creating from an avoidance of a negative feeling. And when we're avoiding a negative feeling, if you've listened to the last couple of episodes, you'll know that is the compulsion to escape. And the compulsion to escape is an addiction. So that's number one. Number two, this cycle was happening unconsciously for a really, really long time. It was happening without my conscious awareness. And even when I brought conscious awareness to some of it, I was aware of some of it. I wasn't aware how much this was playing out in every area of my life. I was aware that I felt these things. I was aware I had these triggers, but I wasn't necessarily aware of the fullness and the gravitas of this cycle, like how much weight this cycle was having on my lived experience. So by bringing that real awareness to it and allowing myself to feel all the elements of this cycle and feel into every part of this, that was when I was able to really shift it. That was when I was able to really sit with each version of me in each part. So I was able to sit with the version of me that didn't feel good enough. I was able to sit with the version of me that was rebellious and wanted to prove and wanted to stomp and shout and prove that she was good enough. And I was able to sit with the version of me that was disappointed. And by sitting with each of those versions of me and understanding what those versions of me needed, what it was why they felt unsafe or why they felt they had to compulsively do what they do, I was able to really get a sense of what it was I needed. And the truth was, underneath all of them was the underlying core belief that I did not feel good enough. And until I was willing to really look at that core belief, and I was ready, right, on a nervous system level, because the truth is, I've said this a million times, healing is like peeling an onion. You cannot go straight to the core. It'll be way too painful. But I was peeling these layers so rapidly. And this was a real surface layer. It was right on top of the core belief, which was that deeply I do not believe I'm good enough. And so it was sitting with that belief, and it was getting to the root cause of that belief through root cause therapy, actually, was where I kind of then really went into this. Sitting with the root cause of I'm not good enough allowed me to release a good chunk of that belief, right? And core beliefs have an imprint and an echo that sometimes is eerie, because sometimes something will be going really, really well and you'll be flashed back into a previous version of yourself and you'll have to really catch yourself. But by getting to the root cause of what the core belief is or what the core driver is of any of these emotional cycles, that's how we shift and change them. That's how we rearrange them. That's how we rewrite them. That's how we can then sit with whatever comes up, like I don't feel good enough, and help myself feel good enough through loving myself, being kind, being compassionate, being supportive, and rewriting my beliefs and changing my conscious thought. It's not either or. I think there's such a narrative that healing and growth is about changing conscious thought, but you can't change conscious thought without changing what's in the subconscious and what's happening in the unconscious, because otherwise we've always got 5% fighting 9%, right? So we've got 5% conscious mind fighting 95% subconscious and unconscious programming. And so what's always going to win is the version of you that's programmed in the unconscious and the subconscious. And this is why when people say, oh, I just self-sabotage and I have no idea why, honey, that's why. So this is why getting to the root cause is the answer to everything. And this actually, side note here, is what I'm going to be diving deep into inside the Heal workshop, which is taking place on the 5th of May at 8 p.m. Now, you're probably listening to this on the 5th of May. This is the date I'm going to launch it. So if you are going to miss it or you've listened to it after the 5th of May, you can get the replay in the same place, lucysuperfox.com/heal. I'm going to be diving deep into all versions and all matters of addiction, everything from self-sabotage to emotional eating, overspending, overworking. And I'm going to be doing a big section on exactly this, on the addiction to emotional cycles that are keeping us stuck. So if you've resonated so far already, and if you feel like, oh, this could be me, then don't forget to register and join me, lucysuperfox.com/heal. So can you see how it is possible to be addicted to being in a certain energy state or mood? So I was in the energy of disappointment and the energy of what's the point? I would say that a lot. It's an echo of somebody in my family. I would hear them say that a lot. And it was an echo of that energy of like, what's the point? I'm not good enough. It's not going to work. There's no point. It's never going to show up anyway, or I know people won't buy it anyway, or people won't believe in it anyway. I'd lost so much faith outside of me because I was living in the energy of disappointment. So can you see how living in the energy of disappointment then actually created its own cycle of there's no point because I'm going to be disappointed. So I may as well stay disappointed because at least then I don't have to feel something better and then feel worse again. And this is how a lot of people feel when it comes to anger or frustration, is that they're angry and frustrated and they know what they need to do to change it, or they are open and willing to change it. They take 2 steps forward, but then actually they feel so like, but anger and judgment and fear feels so much safer and so much more normal than this. They're pulled back into that state and they get caught and they get stuck there. Similarly, what I just shared, the fear of change, the fear of a different emotion is sometimes more overpowering than the emotion itself. Sometimes the fear of being dropped back into anger and frustration, if we reach happiness, if we reach joy, if we reach excitement, is so fucking painful that we'd rather not leave anger and frustration. And on a chemical level, you've then got all the wiring of neurotransmitters and how you are wiring and firing them. And this also includes something called neuropeptides. So neuropeptides are actually what gets wired into the brain when we feel different emotions. And these neuropeptides will fire off based on the circuits of life that we live. So if you walk into your job and you've been there, maybe every single time you've been there you had 2 terrible weeks and it was really frustrating and really annoying, you'll get to the place where your brain will fire off the feelings of frustration and anger before you've even walked through the door, because the environmental cues and association with going to work creates those feelings. The same thing happens when we go out at the weekend and maybe we're going to associate it with full of drunk idiots. That's exactly what we're going to experience, or the feeling that comes up when we have that. Or maybe you've got wired an experience of feeling isolated and lonely. And so even when you put yourself out there, you feel like no one's talking to you or no one's listening to you, because your brain will fire off the same chemical reaction. Remember, emotions are chemicals, right? They're energy in motion, but all energy is also a chemical process inside the body. So your brain is firing off these emotional and chemical signals whenever we're experiencing outside environmental cues. And so this is why one of the most impacting factors when it comes to creating change or breaking cycles, especially breaking a cycle of emotional addiction, we'll call it, is your environment, is what your environment reflects back to you. Does your environment reflect back happiness, success, abundance, joy, the things that you're seeking? Or is it reflecting back to you unhappiness, disappointment, frustration, anger? And this is where we can't rely on our current reality to reflect back to us what we want, because under the laws of manifestation, which I talk about a lot, we are getting what we're available for. So the life that we are currently living is a reflection of who we have been up to this point, the thoughts that we've thought, the feelings that we felt, the vibration that we've given, and the action that we've taken. So we can look at our current life and be like, well, this is fucking shit. How am I supposed to feel joy and abundance and happiness about this, Luce? It's crap. And the answer is we have to stop looking at the life that we have as the measure of what we can have. And instead, we have to start looking at other versions of what we want to create. So this is where vision boards are really great. This is where mind movies are great. This is where, having a lifestyle board, if a vision board's not really your thing, like if it's not goal focused, maybe it's how you want to dress and how you want to be seen. Maybe it's using images like, one that I used to do was I used to get like my bank balance, like a screenshot of your bank account. And I would put on the bank balance I wanted them to have, like the numbers over the top. And I would look at that as if that was real. And then I would feel those feelings on my body, like, oh my goodness, this just happened. These are the numbers in my bank accounts. Oh my gosh, I would feel what that feels like. And then I would fire that feeling and that neuropeptide process. I'd be like, right, let's fire and wire, fire and wire, fire and wire. And I would hardwire those things in. But what happened to me particularly was that I got caught in this cycle I've just shared with you. This cycle of looking at my outside life, being triggered into not feeling good enough, that then triggering rebellion, that then triggering disappointment. And I stopped looking inside of myself into my desires and my dreams and what I actually wanted. And I was way too busy looking out there at what other people were doing, other people were creating, other people's success. And this is why your environment is everything. Because yes, if people always say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend your most time with. And honestly, it's true. And it's probably even less than that. It's probably more about where you spend most of your energy and where you spend most of your kind of like emotionalness, right? So you might spend a lot of time on the train, but if you've got your headphones in and you're absorbed in your own world, it's not quite the same, right? So it's not so much about linear time as it is about where you're spending your emotional energy. And I do absolutely think it's good to be surrounded by inspiring and uplifting people who've been where you want to go or are where you want to be. 1,000,000%. But if every time being around them actually triggers you into a feeling of lack or not feeling good enough, then that's the cycle you need to look at, because no amount of being around those people, no amount of inspiring houses, no amount of inspiring cars that they drive or the way they talk about money is actually going to change everything, because that's all passive, right? If the active cycle within you that lives is that those people are better than you, that wealthy people are more successful than you, that you'll never be wealthy like them, that you're not good enough, actually them being in your environment is actually keeping you stuck in a cycle of lack, and you're stuck in an energy of I'm not good enough, right? So this is why curating is a great word, curating our environment to align with one, how we actually currently feel, not what we want, not what we desire, but how we actually currently feel, as in, I recognize that right now, being around people who are, maybe your goal is to do a 5K month or a 10K month, that being around loads of people who are millionaires actually feels too big for me right now. And it's actually going to trigger me into not feeling good enough. Maybe that's the case. Maybe right now you're on a weight loss journey and going into a gym where actually, a lot of the people there work out or compete or in insane shape. And actually you're still working through your feelings of being worthy and your feelings of being good enough and safe to be seen. Actually, maybe in that environment is a stretch too far. This is why I love incremental steps rather than big leaps, right? Because incremental steps allow those changes to feel safe to your nervous system. Like, it's one of the reasons why I've never launched a group coaching program. Like, one of the programs I do run called Cycle Breaker is a group program, but it's a 21-day challenge, right? It's not deeply healing and deeply vulnerable. And the reason is because it's often not safe to be seen when we're in some of these painful experiences and emotions. And yet the world tells us that we should put ourselves out there and surround ourselves with these successful people. But the truth is, if you're living in energies and emotions and beliefs of I'm not good enough, often being around these people is what will actually trigger you more into those emotions, right? So when we have shame, and that's what not feeling good enough is, right? It's the feelings of shame. When shame is living as if it's alive within our nervous system, and this happens because if we internalize not feeling good enough or not feeling loved, not feeling safe or whatever early enough in our childhood, shame will become part of our identity. It will just be who we are. So it won't be something that we have or that we experience day to day. It will be something we experience chronically. And as somebody who has been a shame avoider for years and years and years, I can tell you, actually, when I got to the root of it all, the shame was just living as if it was real. Like, my go-to response to things, and this is probably going to shock people, is shame. Is I'm not good enough. It's my fault. I need to do better. Why did that happen to me? It's shame. And I am still working through this so that is not my instant response. That my instant response is, oh, that's so interesting. I wonder why that happened to me. Or, oh, that's so interesting. I wonder why they said that. Or, oh, that's so interesting. Oh, that's so exciting for them. Oh, that means it's going to happen for me too, right? But when your baseline, right, talking about baselines earlier, when your baseline energetic state is shame, it's addictive as fuck, because whatever is safe to your nervous system is addictive as fuck. Just like smoking cigarettes are addictive because of the nicotine chemical response, just like eating sugar after every meal is addictive because it becomes part of the pleasure palette, just like having a glass of wine to relax is addictive because it wires into your brain that this allows me to shut down. Emotional states are exactly the same. Number one, because they fire and wire inside your brain in just the same way, but two, because they often feel normal and safe. And so what we have to get to is creating a feeling of safety inside of us that no longer needs these emotional cycles, that no longer needs the glass of wine, that no longer needs the television, that no longer needs the sugar. It's not about the behavior and changing the behavior, because often we just see people switch addictions. Like, it's fucking wild. I've had them all. I've told you in great abundant detail in previous episodes. But actually, it's about changing what's at the foundation, changing what's at the root, so that even if there are negative emotional cycles keeping us stuck, sending us in circles that we're addicted to, that we're caught in the chemical crossfire of, that we create safety underneath it so that it falls away, so that we can intentionally reprogram the subconscious and the unconscious, because we create that foundation of nervous system and emotional safety. And this is what the healing journey is about. And this is exactly what I'm going to be diving into inside the Heal workshop, which is taking place on the 5th of May tonight at 8 p.m. And if you missed the live version, you can get the replay at the same link, lucysuperfox.com/heal. So do not underestimate the power of emotional cycles and how addictive they can be. They could be keeping you addicted to a state of lack all the way through to being in a fucking bad mood. So to join me for that workshop, don't forget you can register for free at lucysuperfox.com/heal. And I will either see you at the workshop or I'll see you on the next episode.